caught in the middle do.
Alrighty, here we are back in the lab, back in the studio, whatever you want to call my trailer. And we have Jimmy's Gourmet. How are you doing here, Mr. Jimmy?
I'm doing good, Matt. How are you guys doing?
Very good.
Thanks
Andrew?
for having me on. I appreciate it.
We got Andrew in the upper corner. What you up to today, Andrew? You ready for this podcast here?
Yeah, man, just work same as Jimmy, working with some gourmets, man. That's all I've got going on lately.
Well, you know, I have to ask, Jimmy, how serious are you about gourmets? Because you seem pretty serious.
Pretty damn serious.
So what is that about? What is the
well? That's
where did you come up with that?
So that's a play on one of my favorite movies, which is Pulp Fiction.
Okay.
And there's a line in there that where he says, "Damn, Jimmy, this is some serious gourmet shit." Actually, my wife came up with it. She helped me come up with it, and it stuck. And I had Papa Duck. You guys might know him. I had him do the logo for me, and
Nice.
He's pretty much done all of my artwork for my brand.
Excellent.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. It'd be awesome if you could get a nice meme going with their with the clip from the movie there, you know.
yeah. Actually, there are some on CapCut that you can use for Instagram.
Yeah. I've gone through a lot of those templates. They're really cool.
Yeah. It makes a dummy look good, huh?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Took the words out of my mouth, man. Right. Everybody's always like, "Oh, you're so good at making videos." I'm like, no. I just kind of worked into this program for idiots that just makes you feel really good about editing.
Right.
No, that's great. So is that where you started with growing some lion's mane or something specific?
No, absolutely not. I started straight into the psilocybes.
Okay. Yeah, same as me. I kind of played catch up in reverse like a lot of folks.
Well, I've never grown a gourmet in my life.
So, okay. All right. So it's just the catchy gourmet shit name. All right.
Yeah,
because gourmet just, you know, it is something that we refer to as a type of fungus, you know, as far as edibility, but it is also a descriptor, you know. Yeah. So I got you.
Little play on words there. Yeah.
Well, and it gets people in the door, I bet, too, you know, because it's a catchy name and you know, it's easy to understand. People come at me like, "What's tree digs?"
So what is tree digs?
Oh well, it's a play on the word tree dick. As I play in the trees, and I'm kind of a dick. No, we picked morel mushrooms, and originally I had a kind of the idea of a Sasquatch holding a big, huge morel, like a big baby, kind of a phallic looking morel. And his name was Tree Dig because Tree Dick would just, you know, it's got to be somewhat family friendly, you know?
Right. Okay.
So, yeah, it was just something I thought would be catchy. It ended up just being like, wow, don't you have a better origin story for that?
So here's where I went with it. In my mind, is that you know, I've seen pictures you've posted, and you've got such a nice looking place out in the trees, and that's your digs. You know, your digs are out in the trees, and I went there with that, tree digs.
Hey, it makes sense, man.
Yeah. So
I was kind of thinking like people might think I'm digging truffles, you know, because they're usually up right next to the trees around here too.
All right.
But I've actually never found a real one. I found I'll probably butcher the word, a rhizopogon the other day, which is a truffle or a sclerotia, but you break it open and it's like black and white flaked and it smells really bad.
Oh, right. Yeah. It doesn't sound like my idea of fun.
No, but you know, it's fun to get out and find that stuff. So
yeah, absolutely.
So it looks like you got a pretty nice setup there behind you. Is that your first iteration of a lab, or have you come quite a ways from your?
I've come quite a ways. I started in my home, like most people have. I had a walk-in closet I guess you call it, I guess they call it a bonus room, which is above my garage.
Right.
And it's, you know, it's just one great big master bedroom almost. And it has a couple walk-in closets. So started my lab in there, and it got to be a little much. And I met a guy named Doma Nunzio, who is the founder of Magic Myco.
Okay.
He's the creator of Tidal Wave, and he won the 2021 psilocybin cup that was put on by Oakland Hyphae. He was the first winner of it with his Tidal Wave 2 mutation. So through the mycology hobby, I found him, and I found him through his genetics. And you know, he has his own testing lab in New York. And I said, man, I really admire this guy, and I'm really interested in what he's doing. And I just reached out to him and said, hey, I'd like to talk to you just about what you're doing. I said, what's the worst that can happen? You know, you can say, hey, what's none of your business. I'm not going to tell you. And, you know, whatever.
Right.
He called me right away. He called me on the phone, and we talked for like 2 hours. And I said, you know, how are you doing this? I'm really interested in this. And he said, I'm basically just asking for forgiveness instead of permission, you know. But he, you know, he really doesn't grow, you know. So, you know, really, they don't give too many people, you know, a hard time for researching.
Right.
So, and he, you know, he's contacted his local congressman and councilman and said, hey, look, I'd like to be on a board. If you've ever, you know, do you ever form a board to look at, you know, legalizing psilocybin?
Right.
So I said, wow. I said, you know, this is really something I'd like to pursue. You know, my wife was like, you know, we live in a state where they're not friendly to psilocybin, but we're only 50 miles away from Washington, D.C., and they are really friendly in Washington, D.C. to psilocybin and ibogaine and ayahuasca, and, you know, through something called Initiative 81. It's sort of, not to get into too much of it, but it's sort of like the decriminalization of Oakland and Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Santa Cruz and Salem, Massachusetts, you know, where these cities choosing to decriminalize or make it the lowest law enforcement priority.
Right.
So through a community that I have here, through the cannabis community, actually, they helped me find a place, find a landlord that was absolutely on board with what I wanted to do, that said, hey, I've got an English basement. You can do whatever you want, turn it into a lab. I understand what you're doing. I'm all for it. And we have a perfect relationship. She lives right upstairs, and she knows everything. I mean, you know, it has to be like that. That was one of my criteria, is that it had to be out in the open. You can't hide. You know, you get a water leak or, you know, something like that, and you have to call the landlord, and they come in and say, wait a minute, this isn't an apartment. This is a cultivation center, you know. So I'm really grateful for my landlord. She's turned out to be this. I've renewed the lease a couple times now. We're like the best of friends. It's turned out to be a really good thing. But so now I don't have to look over my shoulder, you know. The culture here is really progressive towards this stuff, you know. I mean, DC has the highest violent crime rate in the United States. So they have much more bigger issues to spend their time on than psilocybin. Right. Especially when everyone has voted to say, hey, we don't want you making this. We want you to make jaywalking a bigger priority than
right.
Know. So
there's a lot of problems these days, especially, you know, here where I'm at in Oregon. They've legalized a lot
everything.
I use the term legalized improperly, like a lot of folks, but they've decriminalized a lot of possession of just all kinds of drugs. Yeah. And so you got people, you know, just acting all kinds of fool out there. And the mushrooms are not the gods. Like, you don't see people on mushrooms out there in public doing, you know, destroying shit. And they're usually kind of in their corner, minding their own business, so they don't have a bad day.
Right. Exactly. And the police know that, you know, they're not looking into that. So this is the perfect place. This was the perfect place for me. And so me and my wife talked about it, and we're very fortunate that my wife has a very good career, and so we went for it, and it's been the greatest thing that I've ever done. It's been challenging because I stay here at the lab a lot. It's about an hour and a half commute, so I come up
okay.
usually on Monday mornings and go home on Friday evenings, just like any other commuter.
Yeah.
So my wife and I, we FaceTime twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. So we're on the same page with the kids and all of that. But she's super, super supportive, and I couldn't do it without her. That's for sure.
Right. Well, that's good. You
Yeah,
need that system, support system to keep at this stuff for sure.
yeah, yeah. So I'm really interested in the whole testing side of this of the psilocybin, and that's kind of why I was drawn towards DOMA. So DOMA has a research team, and it's basically the easiest way I can describe it is crowdfunding a laboratory. So everyone on the team pays, we pay a monthly, you know, to him through his Patreon. And then in turn, we get to use his testing equipment. And we share all of the data that we're collecting from all of this openly to everyone, publicly. And we're really looking at the minor alkaloids right now.
Oh yeah.
That's what I'm interested in. We're this field is all over the place right now because the boom is on.
Oh yeah.
Everybody's talking about psilocybin. It's the new mother's little helper. All the professionals are doing it. There's starting to become some big money starting to flow into it. So everybody's all over the place. Even even us citizen scientists, we don't know what we want to do. We don't know where it's going to go or what avenue to take. We just know that we want to be a part of it.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of aspects of why it's doing so well, and like part of it is that it is just a kind of a fad almost to some degree. It's not, for the
Right.
vast majority of us, but as far as business goes, for
Yes.
them investing and folks that would otherwise have no involvement with it, they're like, okay, now this is going to be profitable. There's a lot of interest we can get in, and so I forget what they call that, but there's like chatter before investment happens, and that's been happening for some time now. There's big money out there to be had.
Yeah, there is. I hope it doesn't screw it up, which like it does with anything. But we'll see. I hope that the right people get involved,
Yeah.
and can keep it on the right path.
Now Andrew here, he's on the opposite end of the spectrum as far as his state is not anywhere near there. So what they've been doing is more of pushing the gourmets and normalizing some sort of standard of fungus so that people get used to seeing that instead of stigmatizing it in general.
Yeah.
I think you've got a festival coming up here this weekend, in fact, right?
Yeah, we do. And something you kind of notice, I don't know if it's just the South. You mentioned like kind of the stigma around fungus. The Great Depression, there was a lot of people that ate fungus just to get by. And then afterwards, a stigma kind of came along because if you were seen eating a fungus, you were essentially admitting you couldn't afford other food. You know what I mean? Like it was kind of a classist thing where people were like, "Oh, you're eating fungus, you must be poor."
Right.
Interesting.
And it became kind of like nobody wanted to eat it anymore, and it skipped like 2 entire generations. And now, like you said, even in my side of things, the boom is happening, and there's a lot of people growing gourmets, and there's a lot of people foraging, and a lot of people cooking stuff. It's interesting to see because I don't even know if Matt knows this, but I studied anthropology when I was younger. So it's interesting for me to see the different subcultures from an anthropological perspective, like watch them kind of have similar trends a lot of the time. And, but yeah, we're doing gourmets. We're trying to do a couple of things like, some of the breeders in your line of work have been doing monocaryon crosses. We're doing stuff like that with gourmets, trying to do some interspecies crosses.
Really?
Yeah,
That's super cool.
and just
Are you guys having luck?
we are having a little bit of luck as far as the crosses taking, but after they took, I'm going to be honest, the first cross that took, we fruited it, and I didn't even take photos of it. It was bad.
No. Hey, some things just aren't meant to be crossed, right?
Yeah, yeah. And that was one of them, apparently, because it was Cthulhu does not look as bad as this came out. But
yeah.
yeah.
Who the heck was it? Was it the Russian scientists under Stalin that tried to cross everything? Like they tried to cross all kinds of things. They're like, oh, we're going to take the best traits of the gorilla and man and put them together. We're going to have this gorilla man that'll do everything. No, it put all the worst traits together and like.
Yeah, please don't do that.
Yeah.
No splicing.
Yeah, backward splicing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some of them though. Like you've had some really good, almost pretty looking things. Like they're just like almost there to just being really what you're looking for. So
yeah,
not giving too much away.
Yeah,
I know you're talking about the blue oysters that I'm working on a little bit, but I'll talk about that. Yeah, we're trying to breed a blue oyster that retains color through its maturity, because you get a lot of them that are beautiful when they're young. Like they'll be pinning in a bright, vibrant blue, and then they'll fade to like a tannish. Like you don't have blue in there, but we want something that's like as vibrant as when they're pinning.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's taking a fair amount of work.
I'll tell you, almost every restaurant I go into here in DC is wait till you guys go back and look at the edit on this. It looked like you guys just passed your soda to each other.
Did it? Did you have one too? All right. I didn't even think about that. We should do some stuff like that.
It looks like you passed it through the screen. I was like, what did I just
like a petri dish? Like,
yeah.
Yeah. I see all of these, 3 and 4 star Michelin restaurants have all of these gourmet mushroom dishes, and they're charging them these outrageous prices for them. And so that there's got to be these, fresh mycologists growing this stuff that has a deal with these restaurants that is, probably going around every day or every couple of days, and so there's got to be a huge market in it.
There is, but there's an equally large competition. Like, I'm sure Andrew can tell you, but I know just from my experience, like there's a lot of folks out there, and there's probably 2 or 3 folks that are real good at the restaurant quality.
Yeah. Well,
what goes into it though, Andrew? Because you were a chef, right? Or at least you trained to be.
I don't want to say I was a chef from the age, but I was in the culinary industry from age 17 onward for over, I think, it was about 13 years before I left and started doing something else. Yep, that sounds about right, because I'm 33 now. But yeah, there's a couple of restaurants that we're already pairing with in Atlanta. I'm not going to announce those quite yet, but we want to get a little bit on bigger scale before we pair with too many. But we're more excited about a cottage license, which is a license so we can like make tinctures. I'll be able to make. We're making specialty syrups from foraged ingredients that, I don't know if y'all have seen those soda machines. You can make foraged soda.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Chanterelle soda, huh?
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Interesting.
With like a soda stream.
Yeah, like a
soda stream machines. Yeah.
Yeah. The Chanterelle one has pine in with it though, because it grows around pine. So
okay,
got a little bit of that with it, and each of them are kind of themed, I guess you could say.
All right. So then will you be able, once you get that license, will you be able to sell it like farmers markets and things like that?
Yeah, and online, thankfully.
Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the competition you're talking about with the gourmets, there's that much competition here in DC with psilocybin.
Oh, yeah.
I'd imagine.
Especially now.
Yeah. So they're doing, so psilocybin is being gifted alongside cannabis here in DC under these gray area gifting laws, where someone can buy a piece of art or a t-shirt or a sticker, and then you gift them cannabis. It's really not legal to gift out of a commercial location, gift psilocybin, but they do it anyway, and they treat it just like cannabis, and nobody really says anything.
Right.
So that's how everyone gets away with it here in DC. So it's almost like it's a legal market here.
Yeah. I've seen similar here. Like, I think it's more so in California than in Oregon. The pot shops have more freedom to kind of do what they want. But even here in Oregon, they're selling stuff with psilocybin inside the edibles, and that to me is just kind of weird. Like when I heard that they were doing like all-in-one bags and having genetics and stuff available for people, I was like, okay, well, somebody's just stocking their shelves, but they do it openly, but I know they do it in California a lot.
So here's my concern. So when they passed this initiative here in 2021 and it went into effect, and you could start, these shops started dealing in psilocybin and mushrooms and these chocolate bars, it's all black market product.
Yeah.
So it's all coming from the West Coast. They don't really know anything about it. They're just trying to make a buck and, doing it alongside of
right.
Cannabis, So with me being interested in the testing and the research part of it, I figured, man, this is a perfect opportunity to lead the way in harm reduction and say, look, if the testing information is available, then why not make it available to people who want to consume fungi?
Right.
And it's really a revolutionary move around here because, first of all, there's not that many people that are even testing fungi, and that have testing labs, maybe a handful in the US.
Right. And even fewer that are open to the public.
Right. And then there's even fewer people who are offering tested fungi to consumers. So that's kind of how I want to stand apart. And the way I look at it, it's unregulated market, here. Hopefully one day it will be regulated. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Because with regulation, comes big money. And then it starts to be only the people with a lot of money can afford to abide by the regulations that their buddies set. And then now you've got only the rich can prosper even more. And so I'm not sure how I feel about regulation, but I feel like it's important for me to self-regulate in an unregulated market. And well, he jumped to the bottom. So that's my concern, is about trying to educate people about potency. Not every mushroom is equal,
right.
And it's important for you to know the difference in potency so that you can be able to choose your dose and dose appropriately. And I think that's important for harm reduction.
Definitely. And I think it's like, pot, you can kind of control the environment and not allow the harmful things, but the harmful things are in fact fungi in a lot of cases.
Right.
And so when you're growing fungi, you have the conditions already there to where if you interact with the wrong things, you could really have a bad product in the end, potentially.
Absolutely. And that's where I think it comes down to integrity. Is I'm sure that there are people out there who grow fungi who is infected with trichoderma, who harvest the fungi and wash the trichoderma off, and someone ends up consuming it.
Yeah.
There's where the regulation would come in, where I would like to see it regulated, because, obviously I would never do that, but I'm sure that I would like to see that regulated. So I think it comes down to integrity and just standing on your word and saying that this is what I stand for, and this is what serious gourmet shit is. It's not shit that's got trichoderma growing on it that's been washed off.
Right.
And it's grown, and it's not grown
top shelf.
Yeah, and it's not grown in, my mom's basement. It's in the best of aseptic conditions. And I think that's important too. So with regulation, someone's going to have to come in and inspect these places, and then gets into how much do you want people coming in, looking at, is that ideal?
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't.
Ultimately, it's a food product, and there's some serious regulations that surround food products that we don't even consider when we clean our labs. Like, a lot of people may do testing. You leave a plate out here and there, but taking swabs and checking your clean areas, checking your processing areas on a regular basis is a minimum requirement for food facilities.
Your dehydrators out. That's a big thing.
Yes,
I want everyone to do. Clean your dehydrators out. Wipe them out with ISO regularly. I'm not saying that we all do it after every batch is dehydrated, but let's at least do it every other batch.
Well, again, it is food, and it's something that someone is going to consume. You gotta be careful to some degree with it.
Yes, and let's all please wear gloves all the time while we're handling it until it's packaged and put away.
Not just for the food purposes, but also for yourself. If you're harvesting any kind of fungus in mass quantities, and there is some sort of contamination, there are many contaminations that they're gonna get into your skin and not be good for you, that exude not so pleasant odors. I used to harvest without a mask, and I would do it in mass, and I had no idea why I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And well, I think it was more than the spores, just like whatever was vaporizing out of the fungi when I was doing it, because you'd sit there for hours and all you'd smell is that it's a good smell at first, but boy, when you get down to doing it for 2 hours straight, you start thinking, okay, there's something wrong with that. And I started using a mask, and instantly my health improved. And from then on, I always tell people that if you're harvesting, use a good respirator and use gloves and clean well.
Yes. Yeah, because you're right. Someone's going to be consuming it.
Yeah.
And would you want to be consuming it that had someone's dirty hands all over it? And
right.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you say, you take pride in your work and try and provide the best that you can for the consumer, like you would want provided for you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Have you seen any of the legalization of the psilocybin in Oregon? That's where I'm at here.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I know that didn't they just approve like 3 centers for people to have assistance?
I think there's 4 now. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's about all
so
followed.
They did much like what you were talking about with wanting to get in with a psilocybin advisory board. So I would definitely, anybody who's got legalization happening in their state, try and get on those boards, because what happened here was those boards were completely filled with the owners of future businesses that stood to profit from the market. So all the rules were set up to seem like they were affordable, but in the end, it becomes this deal where you have to have a facility, you have to have so many staff on hand, you have to have medical people on hand in case something goes wrong. There's just this whole laundry list of things. I need to look into it more, but definitely it discouraged me from getting into it at all. Like, I just said, no, I'm good, So definitely do your bureaucracy. Is it bureaucracy at that point?
Well, there are some psychedelic bill trackers. There's some sites out there. I think you can just Google psychedelic bill tracker. And they'll show what bills are currently moving in every state and where they are. And, like, I live in Virginia. very unfriendly to psilocybin. A bill came before the state legislature to form an advisory board to look into decriminalizing or legalizing psilocybin for therapeutic use, and the governor shot down. He just completely shot down the board even being formed to even look into it. So there are some states that are way behind the curve, but like you said, there's some states that are more progressive. And
right.
look
Yeah,
into
it's a mixed bag though, you know, because like I say, when you see the same folks on other drugs, you know, that are also decriminalized, I think it kind of muddies the water for the people seeing it. You know, like they just assume that drugs are drugs. They don't want to do them, and they see a crazy Yahoo on the street who took too much crack or too much heroin or something.
right.
You know, whatever the hell is out there these days.
Well,
I know Oregon. What's that?
they're out there like, walking around like zombies on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So they're just all hunched over, and they're,
Oregon's really bad with fentanyl right now.
Yeah,
Like
it's horrible.
It's everywhere. I think everywhere is bad with that stuff.
Especially major cities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a friend who's he works for the fire department, but he's a medic, and he says all the time, mostly, you know, a good 3 or 4 calls a night, you know, will be people
overdosing
or fear of it, you know.
Right.
And he says he doesn't do all the same stuff. He just goes there and basically reassures them that a lot of the times you're doing just as much damage trying to give them, you know, something like Narcan or something like that as you are to just sit there and chill with them, you know.
Really? Huh.
Yeah. So it's interesting that it would just be so very hard to do that. I can't imagine, you know, sitting there with somebody potentially dying all the time. It's a different career from anything I've done.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Of course, you never know. I mean, I think at least the folks I've encountered, you know, they're on the edge of death one way or another when they get into the psychedelic medicine, whether it's via addiction or, you know, self-destruction along other lines. So it is kind of life or death.
I got into psilocybin because of bad GI health problems. And a friend of mine who grew mushrooms said, look, will you at least try these? And I said, man, I'm at the point I'll try anything. I was throwing up every day. I couldn't keep any food down. I had been to all these doctors, had all these tests. And within 72 hours, they completely turned my health around. And that's when I knew that I had to look further into this miracle fungus that I just had 3 days of, you know, of life-changing relief from. And it turned my health around over the next few months after that. When I started microdosing, oh my God, it was amazing. I mean, my wife was crying. She just crying tears of joy. She couldn't believe it. And so then, you know, I started looking into it, and I started dabbling into the psychedelic side of it, which I enjoy, but I don't do it very often. You know, I microdose every day. But I don't, you know, every month or two, I'll take a deep dive into it. But I use it when I need to. And the rest of the time I'm just focused on what I'm doing and trying to spread the word and help other people. And, our research team that we have a link, and it's on my website, the link to what I'm talking about. But it's an experience report. And we want to anonymously collect data from people so that we can try to put some trends together with these minor alkaloids. So especially anyone who's using mushrooms that have been tested, that have testing results for, we really want them to go there, leave an experience report so that we can try to put some of this together and try to see all the data and try to make some trends with it.
Well, that's good. Like you were saying, there's just so many different things in each of the compounds we think of as a mushroom, and they interact with one another. Like, I don't know if you've tried lion's mane in addition to your microdoses,
And no, I
but
have not, but I've
it
heard of it.
affects it significantly.
Yeah.
You can reduce how much you use, and it kind of, to me, it alters the effect to where it's almost more positive.
Oh,
And
okay.
I don't know how if that makes sense, but maybe that's just for me.
Yeah.
More
I
brain
can't
power,
imagine it getting any more positive. So I might have to try.
right?
I might send it over the top, huh?
Yeah, well, like sometimes you kind of get that brain fog feeling and whatnot. Lion's mane really helps to clear that up, in my
Okay.
experience.
Okay. All right. I got you.
Yeah, it's a big one. Like you were talking about what got you into it. That's kind of what got me into it initially, was looking into the medicines for cancer and whatnot. My mother had passed from cancer a while back, 2014. And so I really dove into growing at that point. I had been a forager up until then, but lion's mane and all of the I don't know what you call them, if they're all shelf fungi or not really, but the majority of them that grow off the side of trees that we consume and use for medicine, they all treat cancer to some degree and boost your immune system and are really, really helpful. I take 5 mushroom tincture every day, and it definitely helps.
Yeah. You've seen a big difference.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I have really bad brain fog all the time. If I
Okay.
don't have that stuff. In fact, recently I just added in Amanita tincture,
Yeah.
and I take that at night because part of my issue is I don't sleep,
Yeah.
and
I
the
know. I know
Amanita
you
helps
said you
that.
had you suffer from migraines, right?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I've had migraines since I was 14. Like, just
Mhm.
almost every day I have a headache, but I will get to where it gets real intense. So tried it for that. I didn't notice like a huge, like a treatment type of effect. It was more of like a, I don't know. I'd call it like a combo microdose. It's much like taking a micro with lion's mane at the same time. It was
Um,
just a good positive feeling. I feel like going to work, and I feel like I can think of things to accomplish and get through
yeah.
my day. So very useful.
Almost like an Adderall for ADD brain. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you actually need it, like an
Yeah.
Adderall. If you most people that take them, they don't need them, and so it's like crack to me.
Right,
Not
right. Right,
that I know, that's just a descriptor.
right. So have you ever tried, I'm sure you've tried macrodosing psilocybin for your headaches, right?
Well, I haven't tried them when I have headaches,
Okay.
just because I think the mindset that I'm in when I have those migraines would not be
Pro-
conducive to a hard
Probably
trip.
a good idea. Yeah.
I get angry. Like,
Yeah.
it hurts really bad. I get them in my frontal lobe,
Yeah.
and like every little light, every little
Yeah.
click, it just annoys me. So
Yeah.
I'm sure it might help, but I'm not brave enough.
Yeah. I feel you.
I tried the other day. I tried this Monotropa uniflora, which, if you don't know, because I didn't know, it's the ghost pipe, is what we commonly call it. It grows here in the Pacific Northwest, and it's used for a whole bunch of things.
Huh.
But it's supposed to work for pain as well, really well. And I tried it the other day when I had a migraine, and for whatever reason, I had a bad reaction. Whether it was from that or it was from the migraine and the medication I took, the Excedrin, I couldn't say, because I'll get that way from taking Excedrin. It's really, really hard on your stomach and on
Yeah.
your internal organs, and you just get all shaky, and it's no bueno.
No good.
Yeah.
Yeah, those ghost pipes grow down here too, man.
Do they?
Those are
That's cool.
they're parasitic on fungus, surprisingly.
Yeah, around here they're indicators for matsutake.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We don't have that here.
Yeah, we actually have two kinds of matsutake. I didn't even know there was two kinds, but there's some that grow in the dunes that
Oh,
are a little shorter, squatter one, and then there's the ones that are the mountain matsutake. And So you can actually, if you know what you're doing here in Oregon, you can harvest 2 seasons. I've never even found one. But.
Andrew, you said you're in Atlanta.
Yeah, right outside of Atlanta.
Have you heard of a place called the Bonfire?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. Oh, I was just wondering. I know someone down there in Atlanta, and it's
Yeah.
On Sunday nights they have a big it's like a
No,
pop-up.
I do know what you're talking about. Actually,
okay.
I've only been there once.
Okay.
When they're not having bonfires, they have like a really high deck up on top of their little area that they do the bonfires. And I go and sit on that deck all the time at night. They don't care. Like there's people there. But yeah, I know who you're talking about. It's
Okay.
that bonfire. Like I actually thought about it. I was like, oh no, yeah, I've been to a bonfire down there.
The place, it's called the Bonfire ATL.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Lots of interesting people around there.
Yeah, absolutely. My kind of people.
I think
really,
that's one state I've never been.
So, we have the National Cannabis Festival here every year in DC, and it's on 420 this year on Saturday. Well, they're actually having it on Friday and Saturday. The headliner is Wu-Tang Clan. They're performing on Saturday. But that's the main day on Saturday. But I'm speaking on a panel on stage with an edible maker here in DC that I know very well, and she makes a full spectrum syrup extract. Well, it's not even really an extract, but it's full spectrum. Uses the whole flower, and so we're going to talk about the similarities between full spectrum cannabis and full spectrum fungi. There was, I'm not sure if you guys saw it or not, but yesterday a study came out, and it was an article that was shared on Instagram. I'm going to try to make a post about it. But the study came out, and I forget where. It's in another country. I want to say maybe Australia, that they just did clinical trials using psilocybin from fungi, using full spectrum psilocybin. So in the US, all of the clinical trials, it's all done with synthetic psilocybin.
Oh yeah.
So the effects are totally different. I don't even pay attention to the papers that are released, on synthetic, because it's not apples and apples. But they just found out that full spectrum fungi, like I thought, is way, way better. It outperforms synthetic on neuroplasticity and all kinds of metrics. So I hope that researchers in the US will catch on to that, and hopefully they can start using full spectrum fungi that's, grown in a controlled environment, because I think that we've gotten pretty good at controlling the conditions, of it now.
Oh, and we've learned a lot with the integration of cannabis into science. Like, there was a lot of garage science that took place before all these really intelligent people moved in with experience in real labs and converted everything. And so I think what you'll see is the integration of making full spectrum with fungus is easier now. Whereas before it really was not. You had to have specialty equipment ordered from overseas, and nobody had a lot of experience. And I think that now we're getting into seeing what's in there. And I agree. I mean, I think it's like cannabis. You just don't get the full effect. The plant itself is the medicine, and if you get too far away from that plant or from that fungi, then you're getting into a whole different world, and it's not doing the same thing. At least it may still be medicine, but it's not the one we know.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. And I think I think the minor alkaloids that produce the entourage effect, such as cannabis, and the minor cannabinoids like CBD, CBG, CBN, all of those. Mm-hmm. I think that we're going to find, if we can collect this data on doing all this testing, I think we're going to find that there are different alkaloid profiles of these minor alkaloids that are better for different things like PTSD. And then there may be another alkaloid profile that's better for depression. And then there may be another alkaloid profile, that's better for anxiety. And only by testing and compiling all this data and trying to make it available for everyone so that everyone can look at it, everyone can add to it. And, I don't know how long it's going to take, but, maybe our kids or, our grandkids will figure it out. But at least we got to start somewhere, And I think we're just barely scratching the tip of the iceberg with everything that we know right now about fungus, because we really don't know shit, really. In the big picture of things.
Now, there's a lot of new things too that are still in that taboo region, that a lot of people don't, they think, oh, well, you're just talking about using the stuff randomly, like for one thing, I don't hear a lot about people using fungus topically. And I have heard recently that you can, in fact, and not only can you, that there's a lot of ways you can with all kinds of entheogens. And if you start talking to some of these gals that I know, they'll make like bath bombs, lotions, tincture, whatever you want to call the skin tincture that you put on.
Sugar rubs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it all helps. And I mean, they even get some off the wall stuff. My friend, the Muse, she's even got some suppositories and things like that, but that they actually work, and like that they're for sexual improvement as well. And, it's just, there's so much out there that we have no idea, what potential this stuff has, because there's been this taboo on it for this time.
Thank God for citizen scientists like us here that spend the time and the resources. And because look, none of us are getting rich off of this. Let's, we all know this. I've yet to make a dime, and everything that we all make, we put it all back in because we're passionate about it. And thank God for passionate people like us that aren't in it for the money, because there's not much in it. It's selfless. It's thankless. It's many, many late nights in a lab by yourself, doing what you love. So,
every day I find some new aspect of it I enjoy to keep interested. Talking to new folks helps. Getting new tips, like
never stop
the other day, your tip on using the light indicator for the testing, that was an eye opener for me. I don't know if I told you about that, Andrew, but
the IO rodeo. So there's an open source machine out there called an IO rodeo. It's a colorimeter. It's a spectrophotometer, and it measures wavelengths of light. And so Doma, in the research team, what he did was the SiliQ, the miraculous SiliQ potency tests.
They
have out the reagent tests. So he developed a method to split those tests so that you can get two tests out of one, and then you have to use one for a blank to blank the machine. But he calibrated the machine off of HPLC results and those SiliQ results for each HPLC results, and fed the data in there and made it available open source. So you can just plug the machine in, download the calibrations. Then you can read these SiliQ tests down to the exact potency number instead of right now, the way you do it is you hold it up to a card and it's a color chart. And however much it changes color.
However much you move it in the shadow.
Right. Exactly. It's so subjective, right? When you're doing it by eye, and it's the human eye error, and it's all of that. So he developed this method for it, and it works really well. And what you can do, so there's a step in that test where you heat your solution up for 15 minutes in almost boiling water. And after that is when you read it, the combined PCBE potency. But when you add the solvent to the reagent, your extraction solvent to the reagent for the first time and let it change color. And if you test it then, you can get the pre-reaction psilocin level.
Interesting.
So then what it does is so when you add the heat to it, then you get the complete number. So you can get two different numbers out of it. And with some algebra, you can figure out some really good, you can figure out psilocin content, psilocybin content. Then you can figure out PCBE, which is psilocybin equivalent, and you can figure out PCNE, which is psilocin equivalent, which takes into account anything that may have converted or degraded during the process. It's still going to be in there, but just in a different form. And that's what that PCBE number is. And that's the most important number when you're doing potency testing, is that you could have psilocin or psilocybin convert, but it's not going to be lost. It's going to still be in that PCBE number.
Huh. Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Yeah. So anybody can do it now. The machine's only $189. The tests are only like $25. So you can split them into two. So now anybody can, with a little bit of lab equipment, anybody can do potency testing pretty damn accurate.
Yeah, it's really cool. I knew as soon as you showed it, like I remembered I used to work for a pool water testing company, and we actually had an integrated light sensor that you would do your reagent testing in, and you just drop it in there, and it would come up on the computer screen and tell you everything about it. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, dude, yes. Why didn't anybody have this before? That's so genius. Yeah.
So then, so the company Miraculix, they just came out with their own calibrations for it, and now they're selling them on their website. They consulted with Doma, and they looked at his calibrations and stuff, and they went with a different, they did their own calibrations. But now Doma is trying to calibrate for using only methanol. So that you don't have to buy the SiliQ test now. You can just do straight methanol. He has a calibration on there already using straight methanol for DMT, and it will test the purity of the DMT using only
Interesting.
methanol.
So that's kind of the mechanism, is that it's an extraction from whatever you're testing, and then the reagent does the coloration or shows you. That's cool. That's good.
Even I don't know what the reagent is. It's a proprietary. I know it's some kind of acid, like a sulfuric or a hydrochloric acid, but it's pH just right. There's some nuances to it, but that's the whole premise behind it. And the extraction, I know, is just methanol. So
research the patent. You can probably see they probably had to patent the chemical pattern. So
yeah, they probably did.
I got a good buddy of mine that's really good at researching that stuff, and we talk about all this crazy shit, like that you think, oh, this isn't possible, like you can't farm chanterelles. It's tough to farm these truffles. Well, you start looking into patents, and you start looking at like school research papers. They've done all this stuff, and you can find out not just their patent info, but how to do it. Like the whole thing is proprietary. You just can't go out there and go into business doing it that way. And you're just like, oh no, there's lots of resources.
Yeah, they have to list all of that though.
Yeah,
to file for the patent, they have to list the whole process and the whole technique.
Yeah. For a lot of them, not for all of them. It depends on what the patent is. Right. If the patent is for process, then it's gonna talk about the process. But there will be other patents for like the end product. Like here's our chemical compound. This is the end part of it. This is what we're patenting to sell. But we're also patenting the process of how we got there. And along the way, a lot of the processes to achieve each step of something like that, they can patent that as well. So money dictates a lot of things with that stuff.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
It's like copyrights, And
it sounds like to me that you picked, Matt, the very best business model that you could have in the mycology field, is to provide agar with excellent customer service and provide supplies and go that route.
Right. It's like my buddy told me initially, you can be the guy down there on the ground mining the gold, or you can be the guy selling the gold pans and the pickaxes and shovels. And the guys that walked away from that equation with the gold were not the miners. So.
Yeah. They said that during the gold rush, the pickaxe and shovel manufacturers actually made more money than the miners.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably the horse salesman too.
Yeah.
You got to have a horse, you know.
Well, you have a really good business. I want to give you props. Your customer service
it.
Off the chart. You have very fair prices.
I'm hoping to get out there more into the bigger markets. You know, I'd like to get other people selling my plates. That's really the next evolution. So we're working on it with a couple people, and hopefully over the next month or two, I'll get that going on.
Good.
Yeah, we're going to carry some tree dig plates in our
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I even want to get to making like custom labels, you know, like we could have a Cave Springs label, and then it just says packaged or manufactured and packaged in a Tree Digs laboratory, you know, things like that. So we'll see. There's actually some places like that here locally. I actually, as soon as I decided to go down this path, a guy called me locally, and he says, yeah, so I sell to 3 out of the 4 legal psilocybin facilities in Oregon. And, you know, I was wondering if you wanted to carry my products on your website. And I mean, he's got a great setup. He got some pretty good products. And, you know, I kind of got real scared initially. And then I realized, no, that just means I'm on the right track. And
what kind of products does he sell?
He does he had everything. So he sent me a list. I think it's a combination of direct to consumer and stuff that goes to those folks. But to the psilocybe producers, grain and substrate separately, and then he had all in one bags for the consumer. It's a pretty interesting concept too. I don't know how well it works. I'd have to get one to see. But he basically took substrate on the bottom. And then he put one of those little clips that you get for the top of your bag. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Put it over the substrate and then poured the grain in over the top and sealed the top of the bag. So you can run the grain, get it colonized, and then pull that little clip off and mix it in your sub. Whether or not it works, it's hard to say.
It does work. They have cannabis bags like that people hang in their cannabis tent for CO2, and what they do is they sell it with that clip like that, and the grain is colonized with a monocaryon that will never fruit. So what it will do though is when you pull that clip, it'll go down in there and it'll colonize that block, and it'll give off CO2 and then like they said, like 7 or 8 months later, you just throw the bag away.
That's interesting. I knew that it didn't fruit, that it was some sort of fungus that didn't fruit. I didn't realize they just put a single mono in there. So, I wonder what it is.
I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's got.
I wonder if you couldn't then take it and use it to make some funky
something
mix, you know.
But I think it's pretty much the same concept.
Yeah, that's you know, I had that in my head too, and as soon as I saw that, I was like, shit, I should have made one a long time ago. But anybody in the cannabis industry that's into this now would associate a CO2 bag with a good concept for separating the two.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah. Well, we've got some pretty brilliant people in our community too, in our mycology community.
Definitely. I think it takes those brilliant guys, but also some of us yahoos too that just like to be creative.
Yeah. Well, we are. I see our community about 5 to 7 years behind the cannabis movement as far as decrim and legalization goes, you know, and the destigmatization and, you know, everything that's going on with the cannabis movement. I think that we're probably 5 to 7 years behind it. And I see a lot of the creativity and a lot of the really brilliant people I see our movement kind of mimicking the early days of the cannabis movement and how it was going too, and
Definitely.
that's pretty exciting. Pretty
Well, and
exciting.
hopefully, because we have a lot of people that were in that kind of industry when it changed, that they will see better ways to do things, and maybe we'll even
Help guide,
shortcut a little bit.
help guide the myco community. And
Yeah,
yeah,
I think a part of the issue with that though is there's a pretty good divide between the folks that had been in the fungus community for forever and what they see as a huge influx of cannabis folks getting into it. So there's this OG community that feels like they should keep running stuff, specifically Facebook folks.
right,
But it's like I tell everybody, the social media is really actually a pretty small window into mycology, I think. And because there's so much ground movement going on, stuff, people in every location, all these festivals everywhere, that there is just a huge, huge untapped market and in all of these physical locations, and
right.
way more people in those areas combined than there is in the social media land.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Social media is becoming pretty tolerant to our community, I think.
yeah,
I can see
more
them
than they
being a
were.
lot more tolerant than they used to be. When I first started posting on social media a few years ago, they were not as tolerant as they were now.
Now they at least allow you to pay them to become verified, so that then
Oh,
you can, do things that you otherwise couldn't do. And then they're just like, no, they paid for verification. They're verified. They're good.
the only problem is, man, you have to use your real name though.
Yeah.
Get that blue
Yeah.
check mark.
So then if the rules ever change, you're registered.
Right. Right.
Then they're sending you some paperwork.
Yeah.
But all
Man.
right, well, we're getting here past our hour,
Yeah.
so I think I'll get to making some snacks here, and I don't know what all you folks got going on today, but really I appreciate you coming in, Jimmy and Andrew.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Jimmy, hang around after we end the show a little bit.
All right. I
Yeah,
will.
we'll just end the recording here. So thank you much, folks, for tuning in, and hope you enjoyed the show. We had a good time,
Yeah, I
and
did. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah,
Appreciate
this
it.
was
yeah,
great.
much love.
All right. Much love.
Make sure you check us out each week. We'll have some exciting guests. Check us out Saturdays, released first thing in the morning at 12 a.m. You can watch us anytime thereafter.